I'm sorry, officer, but I don't believe I was speeding.
The flashing red and blue lights split the night like a wound. Darius Carter's hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles pale against dark skin. He'd been driving home from a long shift. Headlights steady, music low, nothing reckless. Still, the patrol car stalked him for 3 blocks before the siren wailed. His pulse beat in his ears. He rolled the window down. Cool October air flooding in. Boots crunched against asphalt. Slow and deliberate. The officer's flashlight sliced into his face, unblinking, invasive. License and registration. The cop said flatly. No greeting, no explanation. The beam lingered on Darius's skin, not his papers. Darius passed them over without a word, throat tight. He'd learned that silence sometimes meant survival. But the officer smirked, lips curling like a blade. You fit the description, he said, voice low, suggestive, cruel. The phrase landed like a punch. No details, no crime, just description. Cars passed, slowing to watch. A mother in a minivan craned her neck. A man on the sidewalk pulled out his phone. Darius sat trapped beneath the gaze of strangers, spotlighted like prey. The officer tugged at his holster, let his hand rest there casually. Step out of the vehicle. Darius's breath caught. He could already see how this played. Headlines twisted, his body outlined in chalk. His name reduced to a hashtag. But tonight wasn't going to end the way the officer thought, because Darius Carter wasn't just a black man driving home. He was a CIA field operative, carrying secrets that could dismantle entire networks' secrets. No patrolman had clearance to touch. His hand moved slowly to the door handle. The patrol car's lights painted the street in harsh strobe, and the world seemed to shrink around Darius Carter. Asphalt gleamed wet under sodium lamps, the night brittle and cold. He eased his door open, hands high, palms open, every movement deliberate, rehearsed from years of living a life where mistakes could mean a bullet. Bootsteps thudded on pavement. Officer Mitchell, broad-shouldered, pale-skinned, jaw clenched like a fist, approached with the slow swagger of someone who already believed the outcome was written. Out of the car, Mitchell ordered. No courtesy, no rationale, just command. Darius complied. He stood on the roadside, tall, controlled, body coiled in stillness. His black leather jacket caught the glare of headlights. Mitchell circled, voice dripping disdain. Late night drive, huh? Expensive ride for someone like you. Darius kept his gaze level. Like me. You heard me. Mitchell leaned close, smirked, ghosting his lips. Neighborhoods had brick. You fit the profile. Across the street, a couple paused mid-stride. The woman whispered, tugging at her partner's sleeve. A teenager raised his phone, camera lens trembling as it caught the confrontation. Darius exhaled, slow. His training screamed at him to de-escalate, but his pride clawed beneath the surface. Still, he chose silence. Mitchell prodded further, hands on the hood. Metal chilled his skin as Darius complied, fingers splayed, breath fogging the night air. The officer patted him down with deliberate force, voice pitched to carry. Empty your pockets, or should I expect weapons? Nothing illegal on me. Don't tell me what's illegal, Mitchell snapped. I decide that tonight. Laughter burst from a group across the street, nervous, thin, but audible. Mitchell thrived on it, his voice louder, mocking. See, even they know how this goes. Some thug behind the wheel of a car that doesn't belong to him. Darius's jaw locked. His instincts, field operative instincts, measured distance, weight, angles. He could break this man in seconds. But that wasn't the mission. Survival was. Silence was. Mitchell leaned into his ear. Step out of line. I'll put you face first in the pavement. Nobody here will blink. Darius turned his head slightly, catching the officer's eyes. His voice was low, restrained steel. You're making a mistake. Mitchell chuckled, mistaking warning for weakness. Mistake? Nah. This is procedure. You people always call it something else. A car slowed nearby, window cracked. Leave him alone. A woman shouted. The tires squealed as she sped away, fear trailing her voice. Mitchell barked after her. Keep driving, lady. Don't interfere. Then he shoved Darius's shoulder. Turn around. Hands behind your back. You've got nothing on me, Darius said, voice steady but edged. Resisting, Mitchell sneered, yanking cuffs from his belt. Good. Makes the paperwork easy. The steel clamped cold on Darius's wrists. Too tight, biting flesh. Bystanders gasped, some recording, some averting their eyes. One young man muttered, "This is messed up," but stayed rooted to the sidewalk. Mitchell turned, raising his voice to the small audience. Suspect in custody, drug suspicion, possible stolen vehicle, lies, spoken as fact. His authorities stamped them real. Darius closed his eyes. He saw headlines forming. He saw himself stripped of identity, reduced to stereotype. But behind his stillness, calculation churned. He wasn't just another man stopped on a dark road. He was CIA, and he was taking names, every word, every detail, because this wasn't going to vanish into silence. Mitchell shoved him toward the cruiser, leaning close for one final line. "Better get used to the cage, Carter. Nobody's coming to save you tonight." Darius's eyes flicked to the teenager still filming across the street. His chest tightened not with fear, but with the weight of inevitability. The car door opened with a hollow thunk. The cold interior waited. And Darius stepped inside, bound but unbroken. The back seat of the squad car reeked of stale sweat and disinfectant, the smell of other men who had sat shackled there, swallowed by the system. Darius kept his spine straight, wrists raw against steel cuffs. Outside, the city lights streaked by in fractured blurs. Mitchell drove in silence at first, but silence was never his goal. "You think staying quiet makes you look innocent?" Mitchell's eyes flicked to the rear view, cold amusement glinting. "Nah. It makes you look guilty and arrogant. You people never learn." Darius let the insult hang, unacknowledged. The words were bait, sharp hooks waiting to dig deep. Mitchell pressed harder. "Nice car back there. Bet it's stolen. Or maybe drug money. Which is it? Come on. Educateme." The cruiser slowed at a light. A bus rumbled past, passengers staring through fogged windows at the man cuffed in the back. Darius felt the weight of their eyes, some pitying, some indifferent, none intervening. "Answer me," Mitchell barked. Darius's voice was low, calm. "You'll find out soon enough." The officer's knuckles tightened on the wheel. He muttered, "Cocky bastard." At the station, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, sterile and humming. Concrete walls carried the chill of neglect. The moment Darius stepped through the door, chatter died. A black man in cuffs, eyes alert, posture unbroken, entered, a space where stories like his rarely ended well. A desk sergeant glanced up. "Charges," Mitchell spoke with a casual swagger. "Suspicion of narcotics. Possible stolen vehicle." Resisting, the sergeant raised an eyebrow. "Vehicles registered." Mitchell's grin was tight. "Working on confirmation. But you know how it is." The sergeant didn't argue. He stamped paperwork, gaze slipping past Darius as though he were already processed, already guilty. Institutional rhythm in check, unquestioned. In the holding area, Mitchell yanked Darius toward a bench. Metal cuffs clinked against the chain-link divider. "You sit tight. Maybe we'll run your prints. Maybe we won't. Depends how respectful you feel." Darius studied the officer, eyes sharp but voice even. "Respect is earned." Mitchell leaned close, breath heavy with coffee. "Don't play philosopher with me. Out there, you're just another suspect. And in here, you're mine." Across the room, another officer looked up from paperwork, eyes flicking with unease before sliding away. Complicity in silence. Darius felt the old burn inside. Humiliation, but he let it settle into something colder, sharper. He'd been trained for interrogation under harsher conditions, in rooms without witnesses. This was different. Here, he was meant to be powerless. Mitchell smirked, sensing restraint as weakness. "What? No backtalk? Not so tough now, huh?" Finally, Darius met his gaze, voice steady as steel. "You're making assumptions that will destroy you." The words froze the air. Mitchell blinked, lips parting in momentary confusion, then curling back into a sneer, threatening an officer. "Careful." But the flicker of unease was there. Darius had seen it before in war zones, in alleys overseas, in men who underestimated their opponent until it was too late. Hours dragged, paperwork shuffled, phones rang. Mitchell kept circling back, tossing barbed words like knives. "Drug mule, gang runner. Lucky we didn't impound that ride of yours." Each one designed to corrode dignity. Darius sat, measured breath, waiting, calculating. Every insult, every falsified word, was evidence. When finally moved to an interrogation room, Mitchell leaned across the table, voice oily. "Confess now, and maybe I don't bury you with charges." Darius's silence pressed heavier than resistance. The officer slammed a palm flat, startling the camera. "That word in the corner. Say something." Darius's eyes lifted, dark and cutting. "You don't have clearance to hear me." Mitchell blinked, thrown by the phrasing, then forced a laugh. Clearance, man, you watch too much TV. This isn't some spy flick. But Darius said nothing more. The silence unnerved Mitchell more than any outburst could. As midnight loomed, Darius was returned to holding, wrists bruised, dignity intact. He sat on the bench, every nerve taut, waiting for the one move that would change the board. Mitchell walked past once more, stopping to whisper, "Tomorrow, I'll make sure the DA sees you exactly how I write you up. And trust me, my pen's sharper than any lawyer you'll ever get." Darius looked up at him, expression unreadable. Inside, though, the words etched deep. "Tomorrow, the game changes." The interrogation room was bare. Steel table, 2 metal chairs, a buzzing light overhead that flickered like a dying star. The walls trapped sound, amplifying every scrape and breath until silence became suffocating. Darius sat cuffed, spine upright, eyes steady on the door. His mind catalogued details: the hum of the camera in the corner, the uneven tile beneath his boots, the faint scent of bleach overlaying sweat, all part of the theater of intimidation. The door clanged open. Officer Mitchell entered with a folder tucked under his arm, smirk intact. "Well, patient man, thought maybe you'd loosened up by now." He dropped the folder onto the table. Papers slid, deliberate, performative. "You know what this is. Your life on paper. Every little lie, every little slip. I get to write it." Darius kept his gaze on the folder. "All fiction." Mitchell chuckled, pulling out a chair and sitting across. "You think the truth matters here? No jury's gonna see you. No court cares. It's my word versus yours. Guess who wins?" He leaned in. "I win." Darius's pulse thudded in his ears, but his face remained still. "You sound certain." "Damn right." Mitchell tapped the folder. "All it takes is one line. Resisted arrest, maybe lunged at me. Hell, Ad reached for my weapon. I type it. It becomes gospel." For a moment, Mitchell let the words sink. Then he sat back, folding arms smugly. "So, here's your chance. You want to explain why you were cruising through a neighborhood you don't belong in, or should I just fill in the blanks?" Darius's voice was measured. "I belong wherever I stand." Mitchell's smile thinned. "Wrong answer." The silence stretched, taut and sharp. Minutes passed in a chess game of words. Mitchell prodded, insulted, threw accusations like darts: stolen property, hidden drugs, criminal ties, each charge absurd, yet crafted to stick in the ears of whoever reviewed the report. "You think I don't know your type?" Mitchell sneered. "Too slick, too quiet. Guys like you always front clean. But peel back the layer, and it's the same rot underneath. Tell me, Carter, who's your supplier? Who's funding your toys?" Darius inhaled slowly, jaw tight. His handler's voice from training echoed, "Don't reveal what they don't already know. Don't give the system a lever to use against you." Mitchell mistook silence for fear. He leaned forward, close enough that his breath carried. "Say something. Anything. Or I'll write down exactly what I please." Finally, Darius spoke, voice low, almost intimate. "You should be very careful with the story you're writing. Sometimes the author gets buried in his own words." The officer blinked, caught off guard. His eyes flicked briefly to the camera in the corner, then back. "What's that supposed to mean?" Darius didn't flinch. "It means you're not the one holding the pen." The words cut the room like glass. Mitchell's smirk faltered, a flicker of unease betraying him before he masked it with bluster. He slammed the folder shut, stood abruptly, and growled, "You'll regret that." Hours crawled. Darius was left alone, wrists aching from the cuffs. He breathed, centering himself, rehearsing coded words for the one phone call he would soon be allowed. The mission had shifted. Survival was still the surface game, but beneath it lay something deeper: exposure, accountability. The door burst open again. Mitchell returned, temper simmering hotter this time. He tossed a styrofoam cup of water onto the table, liquid sloshing. "You think you're some kind of mystery man? Let me tell you, mystery men don't last long in my precinct. They break, and when you break, I'll be right here to watch." Darius met his gaze, calm, steady. "Then you'll be waiting forever." Mitchell's jaw flexed. He leaned down, hissing in Darius's ear, "You're already broken. You just don't know it yet." But Darius's eyes were flint, unyielding. "No," he murmured. "You're the one cracking." The words lingered like smoke, filling the space between them. For the first time, Mitchell had no ready retort. He straightened, fists clenched, then stormed out, leaving the door to slam shut behind him. Alone again, Darius breathed in the silence, heart steady. He had rattled the officer, planted a seed of fear. The game had shifted. if only slightly, and for the first time since the lights flared red and blue on the street, Darius felt control slip subtly back into his hands. But control was dangerous. Control meant visibility, and visibility, in his world, could burn. He closed his eyes, waiting for the next move. The holding cell was colder now, the thin metal bench biting into Darius's back. His wrists were raw, the cuffs leaving red welts that ached with each movement. Hours had bled into one another, punctuated only by Mitchell's shadow at the door, his voice dripping with contempt. But this time, another officer entered, younger, wiry, uniform pressed stiffly, eyes that couldn't quite meet Darius's. Officer Reyes. He unlocked the chain to guide Darius out for fingerprints. Voice low, almost apologetic. Come on. The contrast to Mitchell was stark. No bark, no sneer, just precision. As they walked the corridor, Darius caught the nervous flick of Reyes's eyes. He whispered, barely audible. He's got a history. Complaints never stick. People drop them, or the department buries them. Be careful. Darius glanced at him, voice steady. Noted. Reyes's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. In the fingerprint room, fluorescent lights hummed, machinery cold. Reyes guided Darius's fingers across the scanner, careful not to apply unnecessary force. His voice dropped again. Word spreads fast here. Some of us, we don't agree with how Mitchell does things. But speaking up, he shook his head, lips pressed thin. It doesn't end well. Darius's voice was quiet steel. Silence feeds him. Reyes froze for a moment, eyes meeting Darius's. Then he whispered, yeah, I know. The words hung heavy. A crack in the wall, small but undeniable. Back in the holding cell, Mitchell appeared again, swagger amplified. He tossed a stack of papers onto the bench beside Darius. Your record, Carter. Clean. Suspiciously clean. That tells me you're hiding something. Darius didn't look down. Or it tells you what it is. Clean. Mitchell laughed, too loud. See, that's the problem. Guys like you don't get clean records. Not unless you're very good at covering dirt. Which one are you? Darius remained still. His silence unnerved Mitchell more than words ever could. The officer leaned close, voice venomous. You think anyone out there gives a damn? You'll sit here while I write you into a thug, a threat, and no one will question it. From the hallway, Reyes's voice cut in, forced casual. Paperwork for intakes not finished. Mitchell, sergeant's waiting. Mitchell glared, jaw tight. Tell the sergeant, I'll handle it when I'm done here. Reyes hesitated a moment, then walked on, his footsteps sharp. The tension thickened. Mitchell paced, voice dripping poison. You sit there like you're untouchable, but in this building, I'm the law. My word outweighs yours. Out there. He jabbed a finger toward the cell door. Out there. They'll believe me every time. Darius finally spoke, voice even, deliberate. Not forever. Mitchell's smirk faltered for a heartbeat before returning. Brittle, you're dreaming. Hours later, when the station quieted, Darius overheard muffled voices from down the hall. Reyes again, speaking low to another officer. Can't keep covering for him. Complaints stacked a mile high. Someone's going to notice eventually. The reply was curt, dismissive. Then, you didn't hear it. You want your badge. Keep quiet. The sound of boots walking away echoed like a gavel. Back in the cell, Darius sat in silence, every nerve alive. He'd heard enough. Mitchell wasn't just a rogue cop, he was the symptom of a larger sickness, shielded by walls of silence and complicity. But cracks had begun to show. He stared at the ceiling, heart steady, mind working. Somewhere in this building, someone knew too much to stay comfortable. And that meant opportunity. Near midnight, Mitchell returned once more. He leaned against the bars, casual menace in every syllable. Get used to it, Carter. Nobody's walking in here to save you. Nobody's pulling you out. Darius met his gaze, voice low, edged with something that cut deeper than defiance. You're wrong. Mitchell's smirk slipped, if only for a second. The silence that followed was colder than the steel bars. The clang of the cell door jolted Darius awake. Morning light seeped through the narrow basement window, weak and gray. Mitchell stood there, dangling a phone like bait. You get one call, he said. Make it count. Not that it'll save you. Darius rose, slow and deliberate. His wrists still bore the imprint of steel, but his posture was steady. He stepped out, the chain of authority rattling around him. Mitchell shoved him toward the wall-mounted phone. No funny business. One number, one shot. Darius picked up the receiver, the cool plastic against his ear grounding him. He dialed with measured precision. Each button press was a beat of control. On the third ring, a voice answered, warm, neutral, ordinary. Agency front desk. May I help you? Darius's tone shifted subtle. Coded, invisible to Mitchell. This is Daniel Carter, calling about my insurance policy. It's overdue for renewal. A pause. Then the handler's voice, clipped, professional beneath the cover. Policy number 416, Darius said softly. Filed under active field. Classified assets. Mitchell leaned against the wall, arms crossed, smirking. What? Calling your dealer. Darius ignored him. His focus stayed on the line. The handler's voice sharpened. Acknowledged. Renewal will be processed immediately. Hold tight. Darius exhaled. Message received. Reinforcements would move. He lowered the phone slowly, returning it to the cradle. Mitchell chuckled. Insurance policy. Cute. You think speaking in riddles will impress me. You're still mine, until I say otherwise. Darius turned his head, eyes level. Not for long. Hours stretched. In the bullpen, chatter rippled paperwork, radios crackling, routine hum of bureaucracy. Yet something had shifted. The weight of Darius's call lingered, invisible but undeniable. Reyes passed by his cell once, eyes flicking with quiet awareness. He didn't speak, but the look said enough. Something's moving. Mitchell returned later, agitation simmering. So, who'd you call? Girlfriend, lawyer, that your big play? Darius stayed seated, back straight. You'll see. The smirk faltered just briefly. Mitchell slammed the bars with his palm. You think you're untouchable, Carter. Out there, maybe you play cool. In here, you're nothing. I decide your story. Darius met his rage with a voice calm as stone. Stories spread, even lies, but sometimes the wrong lie brings the house down. Mitchell's jaw flexed. He turned sharply and stormed out, boots pounding against linoleum. Time bled slowly. A clock ticked somewhere distant. Then, the distant thrum of black SUVs outside, doors slamming, muffled voices with the clipped cadence of authority. Darius's pulse quickened, but he remained still. The station door swung open. Two men in suits stepped through, their presence quiet yet commanding. Sunglasses, tailored coats, federal credentials flashing like weapons. The chatter in the bullpen stilled. Reyes's eyes widened slightly. Mitchell froze, mid-sentence, file in hand. The taller agent spoke, voice precise. We're here for Darius Carter. Release him immediately. The room held its breath. Mitchell's face darkened. On what grounds? He's under suspicion. Release him, the agent repeated. No raised volume, just authority carved into syllables. Now, the sergeant shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Mitchell and the agents. Then, with a reluctant nod, he ordered the cell opened. Mitchell's hand trembled as he unclipped the keys. His jaw tightened, but his voice strained casual. Guess you've got friends. Darius stepped forward, eyes locked on him. I told you, you don't have clearance for my life. Mitchell's mask cracked, just for a second. As the agents escorted Darius toward the exit, the precinct buzzed with whispers. Reporters outside snapped photos, microphones thrust forward. Sir, why were you arrested? What's happening here? Darius didn't answer. His silence was its own weapon. Mitchell stood in the doorway, fury burning behind his forced grin, and Darius knew this was only the beginning. The walls were starting to crumble. The precinct felt different now. The hum of phones, the shuffle of papers, the radio chatter all muted under the tension that followed the suited men's departure. Darius had been escorted out of holding, but not released. He was placed in an interview room once more, waiting. Outside the glass, Officer Mitchell prowled like a caged animal, his jaw clenched, his hands restless. The presence of federal agents had pierced his armor, but the rage simmering beneath was raw and dangerous. He entered suddenly, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. You think a couple of suits scare me? His voice was jagged, stripped of its earlier smug composure. They don't run this house. I do. Darius sat, calm, posture unbroken. You're showing cracks. Mitchell's eyes flared. Craggs, you think this is weakness? No, Carter. This is me giving you one last chance before I bury you so deep you'll forget daylight exists. He leaned across the table, close enough that spit flecked Darius's cheek. Those men FBI, CIA, whatever they leave, and when they do, you're mine again. Darius didn't flinch. His voice was a blade, steady, sharp. You already lost control the moment they walked through that door. Mitchell froze. just long enough for the truth to sting. The tirade continued. Mitchell circled the room, his uniform wrinkled now, his voice louder, reckless. You think you're special. I've taken down bigger men than you. Judges, lawyers, kids with college degrees. I put them in cells, and they never came out the same. You're just another name in my book. Darius tracked him with his eyes unblinking. A book that's about to be opened. Mitchell slammed both palms on the table, the sound reverberating through the small room. Shut up. For the first time, his mask had slipped completely. The controlled officer was gone. What remained was raw prejudice, naked power hunger. You walk around with that skin, that arrogance, thinking the world owes you. Not in my city. Here, I decide who matters. The words poisoned the air. Even the camera in the corner seemed to hum louder, recording every syllable. Darius tilted his head slightly. Then you've already confessed. On record. Mitch's breath hitched. His eyes darted briefly toward the car. Too late, too obvious. The door cracked open. Reyes stood there, hesitant. Sergeant needs you. Mitchell whirled. Not now. Reyes didn't budge. His voice steadied, quiet but firm. Now, for a moment, silence stretched. Mitchell's glare was volcanic, but he stormed past, muttering curses under his breath. The door slammed again. Reyes lingered in the doorway, eyes flicking to Darius. No words, just a silent message. Hold on. Then he left. Alone again, Darius exhaled, pulse steady. He knew the storm outside wasn't over. Mitchell was unraveling, desperate to reclaim dominance, but desperation was dangerous. It made men reckless. He leaned back, letting the fluorescent light buzz above him. His mind turned over every piece. Reyes's quiet defiance. Mitchell's slip into open bigotry. The arrival of the agents. Cracks were widening. He just had to survive until they shattered. Hours later, Mitchell returned. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice hoarse from yelling at unseen colleagues. He threw a chair against the wall, metal screeching. You think you're clever, think you've got allies. Let me tell you something, Carter, when you're gone, nobody remembers you, but me. I'll still be here, badge on my chest, gun at my hip, untouchable. Darius studied him, calm as stone. No one is untouchable. The officer froze, his breathing ragged, his face pale beneath the rage. For the first time, doubt flickered thin, fleeting, but real. Mitchell turned sharply, storming out without another word. The walls were closing in, not on Darius, on him, and Darius knew. The mask had slipped, and it would never come back on. The precinct buzzed with unusual energy the next morning. Phones rang longer, conversations hushed when doors opened, and officers moved with a stiffness that betrayed nerves. Something had shifted, though no one admitted it aloud. Darius sat in the same interview room, posture calm, hands folded. His mind ran sharp as glass. The night had stretched long, with Mitchell's words echoing like poison. But now there was a new rhythm in the air, a sense that the storm outside was finally colliding with the walls of this building. The door opened. 2 men in suits entered, flanking a woman in a dark blazer. She carried a laptop, her badge clipped to the front. Mr. Carter, she said, her tone professional but edged with urgency. Agent Morrison, we've obtained Morrison didn't flinch. Sergeant Mitchell, sit down. I said, turn it off. His hand hovered near his belt, too close to the holster. For a heartbeat, the air froze. Every eye locked on him. Reyes moved, stepping forward. Don't. His voice, quiet but cutting, sliced through the tension. Mitchell's nostrils flared, his hand twitched, but he pulled it back barely. This is harassment, he spat. You don't understand how this works. He broke the law. My call stands. No, Morrison said coldly. What you've done is abused your power, and it's all on record. The silence was deafening. Mitchell's chest heaved, his mask fully gone now. He looked less like an officer of the law and more like a man cornered by his own arrogance. Darius finally spoke, voice low but commanding. You wanted to decide who matters. Now the world gets to decide what you are. Mitchell's eyes snapped to him. For a moment, pure hatred burned there, sharp enough to cut. Then voices echoed from the Holmore agents, the precinct captain, a cluster of uniforms who had heard enough. The laptop replayed his tirade on loop, filling the air with his own venom. The captain stepped forward, his face pale. Mitchell, barge now. What? Mitchell barked, incredulous. Your badge, your gun, effective immediately. Murmurs rippled through the room. Some officers looked away. Others finally met Darius's eyes, the shame visible. Mitchell's face twisted, a man watching the ground beneath him collapse. This is a setup. You're all in on this. Him, especially him. He's nobody. Darius leaned forward, eyes steady. I'm somebody who survived you. The captain's hand extended, unyielding. Badge, gun. When Mitchell finally tore the badge from his chest and slammed it onto the table, the sound reverberated like a gavel striking wood. His voice was hoarse, breaking. You'll regret this, all of you. 2 officers flanked him, escorting him out. His boots echoed down the hall, heavy, defeated. The room exhaled at once. Later, Darius stood by the precinct's front doors, the morning light spilling across the floor. Morrison tapped her tablet, already drafting reports. We'll need your testimony. This isn't over, it never is, but what happened here is enough to start tearing down his shield. Reyes lingered nearby, eyes tired but resolute. He spoke softly. You saved more than yourself in there. Darius looked at him. No. You made the choice when it mattered. For the first time, Reyes met his gaze fully. No words followed, just the weight of recognition between 2 men who had walked into the fire from opposite ends and come out scarred, but alive. Outside, the city hummed, oblivious, but inside these walls, something had cracked open that would never be sealed again. Darius stepped into the light, but his chest carried the shadow of what had been said, what had been done. Justice was coming, but the scars were already carved. News doesn't travel in whispers anymore. It explodes by the next morning. The footage was everywhere, edited into clips, splashed across headlines, replayed on local broadcasts. Mitchell's words, raw and venomous, echoed through televisions, radios, and phones. Here, I decide who matters. The city burned with outrage. Commentators dissected every syllable. Activists flooded the streets, and old cases tied to Mitchell were suddenly unearthed, each one heavier than the last. Darius sat in his apartment, blinds half drawn, the glow of a muted news report washing over his face. He hadn't slept. The phone vibrated nonstop. Reporters, colleagues, even distant family, who hadn't called in years. Everyone wanted something. But inside, he felt hollow. The public outrage didn't erase the hours in that room. The humiliation, the threat that still hummed in his bones. A knock at the door broke the silence. Open up, Cart. It's Reyes. He stepped inside, eyes weary. He carried 2 coffees, setting one on the table without ceremony. It's chaos out there. Mitchell's name is poison. They're digging through every file he ever touched. Darius nodded, rubbing his temple. He'll fight it. Men like him always do. Doesn't matter. Reyes leaned against the wall. The tide's turned. DOJ's involved. Internal Affairs is tearing through the precinct. And every rookie who used to look at him like a god. They're watching the clips like everyone else. Darius looked at him. And you, Reyes exhaled, long and heavy. I was complicit. I didn't stop him sooner. That doesn't wash off easy. Silence pressed between them. Then Darius said, flat, owning it is a start. The television blared suddenly as a breaking headline cut in. Mitchell, disheveled, was caught on camera leaving a courthouse, shouting about conspiracies, his face twisted, eyes wild, ranting that he was the victim. Reporters swarmed, microphones flashing. I did my job. I kept this city safe. This is a witch hunt. Reyes turned the volume down, his jaw clenched. He's not going quietly. Darius's voice was cold. He doesn't know how. That evening, Darius walked the streets. Hood pulled low. The protests had swelled hundreds, then thousands, marching past the courthouse, chanting, holding signs. The air pulsed with anger and hope. The sound of voices finally uniting. A woman approached him, recognizing him instantly. You're the one, she whispered, tears in her eyes. You stood against him. Darius didn't answer. He just nodded, swallowed by the crowd. Each cheer, each shout pressed against his chest. He knew what they saw, a man who had endured and fought back, but what he felt was the weight of survival, not victory. Later, back in his apartment, the phone rang again. He answered reluctantly. Carter. It was Morrison, her voice clipped. Mitchell's been officially charged. Civil rights violations, abuse of authority. They're moving fast. But I won't. Live. This isn't the end. His allies will try to protect him. The machine doesn't break cleanly. I know, Darius said. And your name is out there now. Some will see you as a hero. Others will see you as a target. The line crackled with static, then went dead. He sat in silence, staring at the walls. His hands shook not from fear, but from the weight of what lay ahead. The system had exposed itself, and part of him knew this was just one battle in a war that stretched far beyond Mitchell. But for now, One truth anchored him: Mitchell had fallen. The mask was gone, the shield stripped. And Darius Carter, the man who had been cornered, humiliated, and nearly buried, had forced the world to see. In the dark, he whispered the words to himself, steady as an oath: no one is untouchable. The courthouse was packed. Cameras lined the. Later, on a quiet rooftop overlooking the city, Reyes found him. They stood in silence for a while, watching the traffic below, the protest signs still bobbing in the streets. You got what you wanted, Reyes said at last. Darius shook his head. No, I wanted peace. What I got was survival, and a reminder that peace isn't given, it's fought for. Reyes's eyes lingered on him. So what now? Darius's gaze stayed on the city. Now, he's gone. But the system that made him isn't. Tomorrow there'll be another uniform, another face, another fight, a beat of silence. Then, quietly, but today I breathed. The evening sun sank low, streaking the sky in shades of red and gold. The city roared beneath them, restless, wounded, alive. And for the first time in weeks, Darius let his chest rise fully, the weight lifting just enough to feel the air fill his lungs. Poetic justice wasn't clean, it wasn't perfect, it came scarred, complicated, unfinished, but it had come. And that was enough for now. Weeks later, the city had settled into a strange quiet. The protests thinned, the headlines shifted, but the echoes of Mitchell's downfall lingered. His trial was over, his sentence handed down, years behind bars, stripped of badge and power. For many, it was closure, but for Darius, closure was a word that didn't fit. He walked the streets in plain clothes, blending with the crowds. Some people recognized him, still nods, whispers, the occasional stranger thanking him for his courage. Others looked away, their silence carrying its own weight. He felt both seen and invisible, praised yet marked. At night, he woke sweating, the memory of Mitchell's voice gnawing in the dark. Here, I decide who matters. The words lingered, not as threat anymore, but as scar. One afternoon, Reyes visited. He wore no uniform. He'd resigned quietly, unable to carry the stain any longer. They sat across from each other at a small diner booth, coffee steaming between them. You ever wonder if it made a difference? Reyes asked, staring at his cup. Darius answered without hesitation. It made him fall. That matters. Reyes nodded slowly. But the others, they're still there, Darius finished. Different names, same shield. That's the fight. It doesn't end with one man. Silence stretched. Then Reyes leaned back, his shoulders heavy. I used to think the badge made me untouchable. Now I know it just made me blind. Darius studied him, then said quietly, blindness can heal, hatred can't. Later, Darius returned home, the city's hum faint through his window. He sat at his desk, writing in a small notebook, not for anyone else, but for himself. Justice came at a cost. Survival leaves scars. But silence is worse. Silence feeds men like him. I won't be silent again. He closed the notebook, setting it aside. That night, standing on his balcony, the city sprawled beneath him, messy, flawed, alive. He breathed deep, steadied. Mitchell was gone, but the shadow of his abuse lingered. The system still loomed, vast and unbroken. But Darius had cracked it, if only a little. He had forced light into the dark, and though the scars would never fade, he carried them as proof that he endured, that he resisted, that he mattered. The wind shifted, cool against his face. For the first time in weeks, he let his eyes close, not in surrender, in survival.